I'll be honest with you. I think I like Good Friday more than Easter. Not that I don't love Easter. I do. I like the celebration. I like the music. I like the energy. I like the sense that everything is possible. I need that. But if I'm being real, Good Friday seems more honest to me. Because I feel like life doesn't always end with a resurrection and a happy ending. Oftentimes I feel like my life feels unfinished. And so, there are things I don't understand about the world. There are questions I have never had a clean answer to, even as a pastor. And, there are prayers that I'm still praying for a long time that have not been answered. And so, I've been around the church long enough to know that we want to maybe even too quickly move on past the hard parts to get to Easter, to get to the celebrations. We want to rush to Sunday. We want to rather talk about restoration and resurrection and glory because there's a good ending. It's tidy. There's a resolution, right? And Good Friday, we don't like the ending because it feels like something's missing. I come out here in the wilderness sometimes to wrestle when it feels like I have too many unanswered questions and prayers are just really struggling. And, I feel like the wilderness is that place where I could just be alone with God. And it's quiet. No one needs me here. The noise is low enough to kind of hopefully hear God's voice. The distractions are lower, and it helps me really understand what's going on inside of me a little bit more. For some of us, and sometimes myself included, it can be uncomfortable. It can be uncomfortable when questions begin to bubble up in us. Questions that we've spent a long time trying to repress, trying to distract ourselves from, right? And this is where the doubts get loud, right? This is where the unfinished parts of our life have nowhere else to go other than for us to confront them here alone with God. But it's also where we could accept that it's okay to be human. It's okay that we still have things that need to be fixed. We still have unresolved issues because we don't need to pretend. My faith doesn't require certainty. It doesn't require or demand that I've got everything figured out before God accepts me. I just need to be honest with God. I'm reminded on Good Friday, the story of Jesus in the garden. And he goes to this garden and he asks his friends to stay with him, just to be awake, just to be near. And they can't do it. They can't do it. They fall asleep. I get that, right? Because, we're wrestling with hard things in our lives and challenges. And we're sitting there with God and we're asking somebody, hey, would you help? And it's hard. Most of us would rather distract ourselves, particularly if someone's asking us for help. We'd rather move on, try to find something lighter to help with, right? And then later in the story, we get to the cross and Jesus is like, my God, why have you forsaken me? And again, not a polished prayer, right? It's not a confirmation Bible answer that I would even want from our own kids. But I do think that it sounds like real faith. And I think that's what Good Friday's about. Good Friday lets us be there in the unpolished prayers, in our disappointments with life, where there may not be quick fixes, immediate resolution, no easy explanations, just to acknowledge that we're in the wilderness and this is where we're supposed to meet God. Honestly, this is where I feel a lot closer to God in my life. This is where I've gotten to hear God's voice more often than not. Because I feel like when we are certain, when we feel our own strength as enough, when we feel like we've arrived and we've got it figured out, I feel like we tend to say we don't need God. And so maybe on Good Friday, maybe this is just our way of realizing how dependent we really are on God and how far we are to really having it all together. So I invite you to go into the wilderness today, maybe tomorrow, on Saturday before Easter, and process your faith. Ask the questions you're afraid to ask God. Be real. Be raw. Because Christ was. And Christ felt the same things you feel. That God knows what it's like to embody flesh. Because God took on flesh. And so maybe we don't rush too fast through Good Friday to get to Easter. Maybe Good Friday is actually the place where something real is happening in us. Because the story of Good Friday says that God is not waiting for us on the other side of having it all together before He accepts us. Rather, God is here right now in the wilderness with us, in the questions and in the doubts and in the silence, in our unfinished parts, even in the feeling of being alone and abandoned. So if today, Good Friday, if maybe you're watching this on Saturday, if it doesn't feel like Easter, if it doesn't feel like a celebration, that's okay. If you feel like things haven't resolved yet, that's okay. If you feel like your faith has more questions than answers right now, me too, and that's okay. Because I think we're actually a lot closer to God's story than you think. Because it's in the wilderness where faith happens. And so may this Good Friday be a moment for you and God to meet in the wilderness as you prepare yourself for the journey to Easter. Hey, God bless you. I'll see you Sunday. Take care.